This is Julie with Beadaholique, and in this video I want to introduce you to Zola Elements tassels, and I want to show you how to finish them off to incorporate them into some jewelry designs. I'm going to show you a couple different techniques here, but first off I want to really show you these tassels. They are so plush and soft, and they just sway beautifully. You can see how nice and thick they are as well. So in terms of their length, they measure a little bit over 3 inches, including this top bead. But what's nice is they're not overwhelmingly heavy, so you can definitely still make a pair of earrings out of them. And when you go to beadaholique.com to buy them, you actually get a set of 2. So you can use them for 2 separate projects or for a wonderful statement earring. So you can see that they come in a nice range of colors and really rich tones. Like I love this red. And you can just see how soft that is and how wonderful that is in terms of how it moves. Now, I also want to show you this multicolor one. This is a really fun one as well. We keep commenting here at Beadaholique how much we love this one. So it's got all the other wonderful colors in it, these great primary colors. Now, if you look at this one, you see that it has this style of bead cap, and it is nice all the way around. So any which way this turns, it's going to look great. So this one has almost like a lotus petal design. And then the other style is this one here that's got these really nice swirls and then almost some little petals up here as well. So 2 different styles of toppers available. And then you'll also notice with all of these, they have these strings coming out the top. So that's what I'm going to show you what to do with these strings here in this video so that you can easily incorporate these tassels into your jewelry creations. So let me go ahead and show you the 2 different methods I'm going to teach you, and then I'll start teaching. So if we look at this sample here, this is a necklace I made, and it has this tassel as the focal. And then if you look up here, I did some purl knotting. So I actually kept both strands that exited the tassel intact, and I purl knotted some little Howlite gemstone beads onto it. And then I finished it with these little clamshell knot covers. So I'm going to show you the basics of doing that technique. So that's one option. One thing I do like about this option is you keep that tassel color in your design, and it really brings that up to the top, which is nice. Makes for a very cohesive look. And then the other example, and this is one that I think you'll be able to use a lot in your designs, if we just look at this minus the chain, it's just adding a simple jump ring up to the top. So that's going to make it where you can then add a clasp, you can add another jump ring, you can add another piece of filigree or a finding or whatever you want. And here I made a purse charm out of it. So I just have a little chain with a piece of lobster, with a lobster clasp, another little charm, and we have a fun purse charm. So let me show you first the purl knotting method. Both methods are really not that hard to do, which is nice. We always like it when we find something that is fairly easy and simple to accomplish and looks neat and professional. So for purl knotting, if you've never done it before, your basic tool is going to be a pair of tweezers. And I really like this pair of tweezers with that bent nose. And then to get your beads onto this strand here, you're going to want a twisted wire needle. Okay, so it's going to be a little hard to see here on camera. Maybe I'm trying to think where I can show it to you better. This is a really fine, thin needle. It's made of twisted wire. It's very flexible and has a little loop up at the top. So what you're going to do is you are going to go ahead and start by trimming your tail so you have a nice little edge. And you are then going to thread it through the twisted wire needle, like so. And then you're going to string on one of your beads. And you can use whatever beads you like. I like these little Dakota stone 4mm gemstone beads because I like it because their holes are very uniform, which is nice. Okay, so now that we've done this, your needle will most likely fall off during this next process. I'm just going to pull it off. You are going to do a purl knot. So to do this, wrap the little strand here around your fingers, pull it through like you're making a knot. Now, go in with your tweezers, go through your knot, and grab the area right above your bead. And then all you have to do is pull your end, and it's going to slide that knot right down to your bead. And you just take your fingers and you push that knot against the bead, and you've got one knotted on there. And now what you can do, you go back, rethread your twisted wire needle. Let me show that to you one more time. Put on another bead. Again, loop around your fingers, go through that loop, even hold it like this at this point. Okay, so now you go through the loop with your tweezers. I'm going to try and do this so you can see it a little bit better. My hands aren't in the way. Okay, so I'm grabbing that area. If you look, I'm grabbing it right where it exits the bead, and my tweezers are through the loop, and I just pull. And then I pull my tweezers away, and I take my fingers and I just push that knot down. All right, so now you've got your beads on there. You can do as many as you like, but you still have the problem of, well, how do you attach this to chain or other beads or whatever you want to do with it? And you're going to need something that has a loop on it, whether it's a jump ring, or in this case, it is one of these little clamshell knot covers. So if you look at this, it has a nice loop up at top. That's what we are wanting. We want that loop. And then it has little 2 sides of a half, and then in the middle, see if I can poke it, it has a hole. And that's the hole we're going to go through with our strand. Okay, so again, you're going to place your twisted wire needle onto your strand. And this time, you are just going to go up through that hole in the middle of it. And you're going to slide this down. So now this is acting as essentially like another bead basically, but this bead has that handy little loop. And now you're going to do the same thing, but on this one, when you get to the point of the clamshell, I like to go through it not once, but twice. Okay. So then you do the same thing. You go through that loop, and you grab it right in the middle of the clamshell, and you pull it down. And you can make another knot if you want. If you want, you can add a little bit of GS hypo cement, and then you would just go ahead and either let your hypo cement dry if you do put hypo cement. If you just knot it a bunch of times and you don't, you can just close up this clamshell. So just bend it, and you would close it over your knot, like so. And we do have a full video showing both purl knotting and how to use these little clamshells. So you could do that, and then you could just trim it. And I would recommend a little GS hypo cement, and that is illustrated in the full video. So there you've got your little knot, and if you trim it your end first, it will go ahead and get rid of that little tail. So that is a very easy way to do it, and you just do that on both sides. I'll show you again what that looks like finished. So there's the finished result, and then just add a jump ring as a connector because this is a closed loop on the clamshell. Just add an open jump ring and then connect it to whatever you want to finish your design. And what's nice is this strand is pretty long, so you could do a nice amount of purl knotting there with whatever type of beads you want to do. So that is one technique, and then really quickly I want to show you a quick tip if you are doing something with twisted wire needles. Over time, their little hole gets a little bit squished because you're pulling it repeatedly through a bead. Just take a toothpick or a little metal awl like I have here, put it into that hole and twist it, and that will open it right back up. And it's going to be really hard to see here, I know, but that's a quick little tip, and that's why I have the little metal awl here. But when you buy the twisted wire needles, you get quite a few in a pack, so you can just use new ones too. But it's always nice to get as much life out of them as you can. Okay, so technique 1, purl knotting with clamshell knot covers. Technique number 2 is the jump ring. So if you look here, we've got that bead that is already on the tassel, and then we have this nice new bead, and we're going to create that nice new bead with a crimp bead and a crimp bead cover, and we have a 6mm closed jump ring. So you're going to need a 5mm knot cover. You are going to, a 5mm crimp bead cover. You're going to need a 2.5 by 2.5 crimp tube. So I've got a couple here just so you can see what they look like. We're only going to use one. And you're going to need a 6mm closed jump ring. Definitely closed jump ring as opposed to an open one here. So for this, okay, let's trim these tails so we have a nice end to work with. And we are going to take our twisted wire needle again. These are so handy. Place it onto one strand. and put that strand and that needle up through your crimp tube. And now the other end, we're going to do the same thing. Going to go up through the same crimp tube. And you're just going to pull that crimp tube down towards that black bead on your tassel. And this technique is going to work regardless of what type of tassel top you have. So it's going to be the same process. Now you're going to take your jump ring, put one of your strands through it, pull this all the way down here, and you're going to tie a knot. And then you're going to tie another knot, and we're going to do a double knot on this one. I'm going to go through once, I'm going to go through twice, and pull, pull nice and tight. Okay, so this is what we've got thus far. And now we're going to want one strand on each side. I just am putting one of the strands through that jump ring. So there is a strand on each side. Gonna go find my twisted wire needle again. And I might need to open up that little hole. Well, actually, it's looking pretty good. If I do, I've got my awl handy. Okay, put that strand back onto the twisted wire needle. And you're going to go back down through that crimp tube. You see where it exits? You're just going to pull. Oops, it came off my needle. Just put it back on your needle. Pull it through. So one strand is done. Go back. This is so soft, this strand. It can get a little bit slippery. Okay, so now we're going to do the same for the other one. And this one can be a little bit more challenging because you have a lot happening in this one crimp tube. Oh, but that did go through very nice and easily. And just pull. And really pull at this point. So you've got that knot up at the jump ring. You've got both strands going back down towards the black bead. Really pull. Now we're going to crimp it. So the crimping pliers I'm using are a double notch plier because these are good for crimping 2mm as well as 3mm crimp beads and tubes. And since I'm using a 2.5, I'm going to jump up to the largest one, which is good for the 3mm ones. And I'm going to just go ahead and put it in that back notch. And I'm going to crimp. So I'm just going to squeeze. Give it a good squeeze. You see how it kind of makes that kidney shape now? And then we're going to rotate it so it's standing upright in the front notch. And we're going to squeeze. And we've crimped our crimp tube. And now we need to trim off our tails. We're going to trim these nice and close. And if you're okay with that look, you can leave it like that. If you want it a little bit more polished looking, we're going to add a crimp bead cover to it. So grab your crimp bead cover in your chain nose pliers with the opening facing out. Slip it on top of your crimp tube. And you can push it. Oops. Once it is covering the crimp tube, and if you want, try to make sure the seam is at the back side of your tassel. At this point, there's not a front or back, so determine the front or the back. And squeeze and carefully go from all angles to try to get it to look as much like a uniform bead as you can. You're squeezing it together. And you're making a nice round bead up at the front. So the point of a crimp bead cover is to hide your crimp bead, but hide it in a way that looks like you just have a really nice round metallic bead. There we go. So there you have a really nice finished tassel now that you can easily hang from chain or whatever you want to do with it. So those are two very different ways of finishing off these Zola Elements tassels, and this is secure. I did not add glue to this, and I really tested it for a long time. I did not feel I needed to add any glue to it. If you want to, of course you can, but in case that is a question that someone has, I did not, and I really did test it, and it is not going anywhere. So, of course, feel free to if you want to, but I don't feel like you need to. So that is how you finish these guys off. They're really fun. They're super flowy. We just have had such a blast playing with all of these here at Beadaholique, and you can find all of them on the Beadaholique website as well as projects using them so that we can give you a little bit of inspiration as well. So you can see how great these all look together. So super fun. So if you enjoyed this video, please do check out our other ones at both beadaholique.com as well as YouTube.